Welcome to the Future of Us Bookcast, your gateway to insights shaping our future.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really diving into something pretty mind-bending. It's the latest book from Ray Kurzweil, the author, inventor, major futurist.
Oh yeah, Kurzweil.
Yeah.
Always pushes the boundaries.
This one's called The Singularity is Nearer. And the title alone tells you something, right? Nearer.
It does. It's not some far-off sci-fi concept anymore, according to him.
Yeah.
This book feels less like just predictions and more like, well, a detailed blueprint
A blueprint for what exactly?
for how information technology is changing everything.
Yeah.
He argues its progress isn't just fast, it's accelerating. Like the speed itself is speeding up.
Okay, that exponential growth idea.
Exactly. And he says that's driving us pretty much inevitably towards this massive transformation. A transformation of, well, us, humans, and what intelligence even means.
That's a huge claim. So our mission today for you listening is to walk through the core ideas of this book. We'll focus on that big one, the merger of human and machine intelligence. And we need to look at both sides, the incredible opportunities, but also the very real dangers that come with it.
Absolutely. The book frames it as this final approach to the singularity. Like, this is the last generation of the world as we currently understand it, before biological limits just stop being the main constraint.
Wow, okay. That sets the stage. It suggests the changes coming are going to dwarf anything we've seen before.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And to really get it, the book starts by zooming way, way out, looking at our place in the grand scheme of things.
Right. That takes us to chapter 1. Where are we in the 6 stages? And the argument here is, well, ambitious doesn't quite cover it.
No kidding.
He's basically saying the entire history of the universe, from atoms forming onwards, has been this long, long quest to invent and then improve intelligence.
Yeah, reinventing intelligent over and over.
And we're supposedly right at the edge of the final phase.
It's fascinating how he connects cosmology to, like, next Tuesday's tech news. He lays out these 6 stages of evolution information getting more organized. First atoms, then molecules, cells, complex life.
Each level building on the last.
Right. And this whole context just underscores how improbable we are. The book talks about the fine-tuning of the universe,
Like a strength of gravity.
Exactly. A tiny bit weaker, and you don't get the heavy elements needed for life because stars don't go supernova properly. A tiny bit stronger, stars burn out way too fast for complex life to ever evolve.
It's a good reminder, we're kind of a cosmic long shot.
Totally. And those early stages took hundreds of millions of years for each step up in complexity. Carbon atoms making complex molecules, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now, the 6th stage, that's technology taking the wheel.
So we've shifted from evolution on a geological timescale.
To evolution on a computational timescale. Things are moving much, much faster.
And the key step, the one that kicks off this final phase, according to the book, is what he calls the neocortex connection.
Mm-hmm. This is foundational for everything else he predicts.
We're talking about directly linking the upper parts of our neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, straight into the cloud.
Yeah, and not with, like, clunky wires sticking out of your head. The vision is much more seamless, non-invasive. Think microscopic nanobots, maybe delivered through the bloodstream.
Nanobots. Wow.
Yeah, tiny robots that could network our biological brain cells with, well, potentially limitless digital processing power. It's framed as an extension of ourselves, not a replacement.
An extension. Okay, but why connect to the cloud? Why do we need that?
Because, the book argues, our biological hardware, our brain, is pretty much maxed out. It's limited by things like energy consumption, the size of our skulls, even the constraints of childbirth. We've pushed the biological machine about as far as it can go on its own.
So the cloud becomes like extra brain power?
Extra brain power doesn't even cover it. Once that connection happens, the non-biological part of our thinking, the digital part we link to, could offer thousands of times more cognitive capacity than our original squishy brain.
Thousands of times.
Imagine your brain is like your laptop's local storage. Pretty good, but limited. Connecting to the cloud is like getting access to infinite server farms.
That kind of scale, it changes everything. Genius becomes something else entirely. And it's not linear growth, is it?
Absolutely not. It's exponential. That law of accelerating returns again. As this capability ramps up, the book projects our minds could be extended millions-fold by 2045.
Millions-fold.
Yeah. That sheer speed and scale is what defines the singularity he's talking about, and why the title is nearer. It's not science fiction decades away. He sees it as an event horizon we can practically glimpse from here.
It's evolution turning inward, intelligence redesigning itself using technology, moving at the speed of silicon instead of DNA.
Precisely. And that feeling of proximity really comes through in this quote he offers.
Okay, let's hear it.
Quote, "A key capability in the 2030s will be to connect the upper ranges of our neocortices to the cloud, which will directly extend our thinking."
The significance of that is huge, isn't it? It completely reframes the AI discussion.
Totally. AI stops being this separate, maybe scary other. It becomes the next step in our own evolution, a tool to amplify our own minds. We break free from the limits of our biology and become defined by information patterns that can grow almost without limit.
Okay, that's a massive idea. But how do we actually build an intelligence smart enough to merge with us like that? That must be the next piece.
Exactly. And that's chapter 2, Reinventing Intelligence. This chapter gets into the nitty-gritty of how we got on the path to superhuman AI. And the key wasn't just clever programming by humans.
No, what was it then?
It was a fundamental shift towards mimicking the way our own brains work, specifically the flexible, layered structure of the neocortex, what we now call deep learning.
Right, and to really appreciate that shift, the book contrasts this with the older way of doing AI, the symbolic approach.
Yeah, the symbolic or rule-based approach. For decades, that was AI. It uses formal logic, strict rules defined by humans. It's great for closed systems where the rules are clear.
Like solving algebra problems or maybe chess in the early days?
Exactly. Stuff like proving geometric theorems, defining prime numbers. Very logical.
Yeah.
It worked well.
Yeah.
Up to a point.
And that point was?
The real world. The messy, unpredictable, complex real world. It hit what the book brilliantly calls the complexity ceiling.
The complexity ceiling. What does that mean practically?
It means trying to capture the nuance of reality with simple rules just breaks down. If you add one new rule to handle some exception, it doesn't just fix that one thing. It can create conflicts with every possible combination of the rules you already have.
So the potential for errors just explodes.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
The book throws out a mind-boggling calculation. Get this, just 1,000 rules
Yeah.
can create over a Google's a potential failure points, subsets of rules conflicting.
A Google's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even picture that number.
Nobody can. It's astronomically huge.
Yeah.
And it perfectly illustrates the problem. Here's the quote that nails it.
Okay.
Quote 1, complexity ceiling.
Hmm.
Thus, the more rules you have already, the more each new rule adds to the number of possible subsets. This is the complexity ceiling.
So trying to program common sense or understand language with simple if-then statements was just doomed from the start.
Pretty much. It just collapses under its own mathematical weight. And that realization forced the field to look elsewhere towards the connectionist approach.
Neural networks.
Right. Instead of strict rules, you use these massive networks of simple processing units, kind of like neurons, arranged in layers. And crucially, they learn. They figure out the patterns and insights directly from huge amounts of data. They don't need a human programmer to spell out every rule.
That sounds way more flexible for dealing with, reality.
It is huge advantage, but it comes with its own big challenge.
Yeah.
The black box problem.
Ah, right. The AI gives you an answer, maybe a brilliant one, but you have no idea how it got there.
Exactly. The interactions between billions of connections inside the network are just too complex for a human mind to follow. So you get the right medical diagnosis, maybe, but you can't trace the logical steps.
And that lack of transparency is a major issue, especially for important stuff like medical decisions or legal judgments.
Absolutely critical. We can't just blindly trust it for high-stakes decisions, which is why there's so much research now into making these systems explainable, interpretable.
It's that trade-off again, isn't it? Power versus understanding. The book puts it really starkly. Quote 2, connectionist insight. One of the key advantages of the connectionist approach is that it allows you to solve problems without understanding them.
That quote captures it perfectly. The AI doesn't understand in the human sense, but it gets the right answer by recognizing incredibly subtle patterns.
So why does this brain-mimicking structure work so well? The book uses an analogy with our own brain parts, right?
Yeah, it contrasts the cerebellum and the neocortex.
Okay, the cerebellum. That's the older part.
Yeah, it controls basic, almost automatic stuff, learned muscle memory, like catching a ball without thinking about the physics, or instinctive behaviors in animals, like a specific way of digging a burrow. It's efficient, but slow to change, needs evolution or lots of repetition.
Got it. Fixed and efficient.
But the neocortex, that's the game changer for mammals, especially us.
That's the wrinkly outer layer, the thinking cap.
Pretty much. It's
Yeah.
flexible, it learned, it rearranges itself. It's this amazing pattern recognition machine arranged in hierarchies. That's what allows us to learn quickly, to think abstractly, to have language, science, art, humor, all the complex stuff.
So the neocortex lets us invent new solutions in like an afternoon instead of waiting millennia for evolution.
Exactly. It learns by analogy, sees a pattern here, applies the insight way over there. That cross-domain thinking is key.
And that's the blueprint modern AI is now successfully copying.
That's the argument. And it's led to some really stunning milestones recently.
Like DeepMind's AlphaGo.
That was a big one. Beating the world champion at Go. Experts thought that was decades away because the game is just so complex, so intuitive. AlphaGo's win, using deep reinforcement learning, really proved the power of this connectionist approach at scale.
But it wasn't just about one game, right? The learning started to transfer.
Yes, that's the crucial next step. Transfer learning. AlphaZero came next. It mastered games like chess and the Japanese game shugi in just 4 hours of playing against itself.
4 hours, starting with just the rules.
Just the rules. And then MuZero took it even further. It mastered those games without even being told the rules.
Wait, how?
It figured them out just by observing and playing. Pure learning applied across totally different game types. That ability to generalize, to transfer learning from one area to another. That's starting to look a lot like human intelligence.
That's incredible. The book highlights this, doesn't it?
It does. This quote really emphasizes that flexibility.
Let's hear it.
Quote 3, MuZero. With this transfer learning ability, MuZero can master any board game in which there is no chance, ambiguity, or hidden information, or any deterministic video game like Atari's Pong. This ability to apply learning from one domain to a related subject is a key feature of human intelligence.
So it's not just memorizing moves, it's grasping underlying principles.
Exactly. And we see that same power in the big language models, the LLMs everyone's talking about.
How do they understand language?
They represent words not just as text, but as concepts in this complex, high-dimensional space, maybe 500 dimensions or more. That allows them to grasp context, nuance. They know the difference between traffic jam and strawberry jam.
Because the concepts live in different locations in that space.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's becoming multimodal now. Things like CLIP can connect images and text. The system understands that a photo of a spider, a cartoon of Spider-Man, and the word spider all relate to the same core concept.
Like how our own minds link ideas.
Very much so. And it's moving into reasoning. Google's Paul M model could explain jokes, which requires understanding implied meaning, cultural context.
Explaining jokes, that's a high bar.
It is. And it used chain of thought reasoning showing its steps. Then GPT-4 demonstrated really sophisticated spatial reasoning.
Oh, the diamond problem.
Yeah, the one about moving objects around a room and figuring out where the diamond ends up. The book quotes the answer.
Which was?
Quote 4, GPT-4 reasoning. The diamond is now on your bed.
Simple answer, but getting there requires tracking object states and locations in a way that seemed uniquely human just a short while ago.
Right. And now this reasoning is connecting to the physical world. Paul M combined language understanding with robotics. You tell it, fetch the rice chips from the kitchen, and it could understand, navigate the environment, find the chips, and bring them back.
Wow. Okay, so reasoning, language, perception, action, it's all coming together.
And it all hinges on one thing. Massive amounts of computation. Scale.
This goes back to that old debate Kurzweil had, right, with Marvin Minsky.
Yeah, back in 1993, Kurzweil argued you needed sheer computational power. He estimated around 10 to the 14 calculations per second to mimic the brain. Minsky thought it was all about clever algorithms, not brute force.
And Kurzweil's view seems to have won out.
Decisively.
Yeah.
The breakthroughs of the last few years were enabled by throwing enormous amounts of computing power at these neural networks. The amount of compute used for training top AI models has been doubling roughly every 5.7 months since 2010.
Faster than Moore's Law, even. That's a deliberate investment in scale.
Absolutely. It shows the conviction that computation is the key. But the book is honest. It admits there are still gaps. Things AI isn't great at yet.
Like what?
2 big words. Contextual memory and common sense, especially social understanding.
Contextual memory? You mean remembering things over long periods?
Yeah, like remembering details and relationships across an entire novel. The number of possible connections between pieces of information grows exponentially, so it becomes incredibly computationally expensive to maintain context over long stretches. Current systems struggle with that.
Okay. And the common sense part?
That includes theory of mind, understanding what other people know, what they believe, what their intentions are, predicting how someone will react. That deep social intuition is crucial for real general intelligence, for an AI to navigate our world smoothly.
So, still hurdles to overcome.
Definitely. But given the pace of progress in computing and algorithms, the book suggests these gaps will likely close sooner rather than later, which forces us to ask, if an AI gets that good, that human-like, well, what is it? Is it conscious?
Right. And that leads directly into Chapter 3, Who Am I? This is where the book dives headfirst into the deep philosophical waters stirred up by advanced AI. Identity, consciousness, free will, the big questions.
Yeah, it gets pretty existential. The chapter starts by grounding the whole discussion in our own subjective experience.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like the center of your own universe, that feeling? That is consciousness.
And the book connects that directly to identity. Here's the quote, setting it up. Quote 1, when we wonder, who am I? We're asking a fundamentally philosophical question. It's a question about consciousness.
So to even talk about AI identity, we have to grapple with consciousness. And the book makes a crucial distinction here.
Between.
Functional consciousness versus subjective consciousness.
Okay, break those down.
Functional consciousness is what we could observe. Does it act conscious? Does it respond intelligently, show emotion, learn? It's the outward behavior.
Like the Turing test, basically. Can it fool you into thinking it's human?
Pretty much. But subjective consciousness?
Yeah.
That's the inner experience, the qualia. The actual feeling of being you, seeing red, feeling pain, the lights being on inside.
And we can't directly observe that in anyone or anything else, can we?
Nope. Not even in other humans, let alone in AI. We assume others have it, but we can't prove it scientifically.
Which brings up that classic thought experiment, the philosophical zombie.
Right, the P-zombie. Looks human, acts human, talks about feelings, but inside, nothing. Just an empty shell perfectly mimicking consciousness.
Creepy idea.
It highlights the ethical dilemma. The book points out, if P-zombies were real, we'd probably feel worse about kicking a dog, which we assume does feel pain, than kicking a P-zombie, even though the zombie might be writing beautiful poetry about suffering.
Because we can't verify that inner feeling.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes this fundamental limitation.
What's the quote?
Quote 2, the trouble is that in real life, even in principle, there is no way to scientifically determine whether another being has subjective consciousness.
So if we can't know for sure if an advanced AI is really conscious inside, how should we treat it?
This leads to a really important ethical conclusion in the book. Given that we can't prove or disprove subjective consciousness, the morally responsible path is to assume that philosophical zombies are impossible. Meaning, once an AI passes sophisticated tests for functional consciousness, acts intelligent, seems self-aware, claims to have feelings, we should act as if it has subjective consciousness too. We should extend moral consideration, maybe even rights, to these complex information patterns.
Wow, that's a significant step, treating code as potentially conscious.
It is. It's moving beyond biology as the sole basis for moral worth.
Okay, so that's consciousness. What about free will? If the universe runs on physical laws, how can we have choices? Isn't it all predetermined?
The book tackles this by bringing in ideas from complexity science, particularly Stephen Wolfram's work on cellular automata.
Those simple grid rules that create surprisingly complex patterns.
Exactly. Some rules, like the famous Rule 110, generate behavior that's fundamentally unpredictable in the long run. Even though the rule itself is simple and deterministic, the outcome is so complex it has what's called irreducible complexity.
Irreducible complexity, meaning you can't take a shortcut?
Precisely. There's no simpler formula or algorithm that can predict what the system will look like 100 steps from now, other than actually running the system for all 100 steps.
You have to live through it, basically.
You got it. And that's the key to reconciling free will with determinism. This is the idea of compatibilism.
How does that work?
Our decisions are determined by the underlying physical laws operating our brains, yes, but the actual process of our brain computing those steps, making the decision, that process is irreducibly complex.
So the unfolding of the decision is the choice.
Exactly. Since there's no shortcut to knowing the outcome without going through the process, the choice feels real and, in a meaningful way, is real. It's not predictable in advance, even in a deterministic universe.
Our consciousness is generating new information by living through the computation.
That's the idea. And the book captures that sense of unfolding reality.
Let's hear it.
Quote 3, the only way we can perfectly see forward is through all the steps actually unfolding.
Okay, that's a fascinating take on free will. It defines the self as this ongoing, complex information pattern.
Which leads right into the next big topic, identity continuity. If we start swapping out parts,
Hmm.
are we still us?
Like the ship of Theseus problem, but for brains.
Kind of. The book starts gently with the gradual replacement idea. If you slowly replace biological neurons with, say, those non-invasive nanobots we talked about, one by one,
Would your consciousness flicker out?
the argument is no. As long as the pattern of information, the connections, the functions are maintained continuously, your identity, your subjective awareness persists. We replace cells in our body all the time without losing our sense of self.
Okay, gradual replacement seems plausible. But what about making a copy? A replicant?
That's the trickier one. Kurzweil talks about his own project, creating a dadbot. He trained an AI on huge amounts of his late father's writings, letters, recordings, trying to recreate his father's personality and way of thinking as an information pattern.
So if the self is just information, a good enough copy should act like the original.
That's the hypothesis.
Yeah.
And the book shares some examples of dialogues with this dadbot that are, well, remarkably nuanced and human-like.
Like what?
There's one where it reflects on its own personality. It's quite striking.
Read it out.
Quote 4 from the dadbot dialogue. It is, of course, difficult to praise oneself, but I would like to say that my ability to relate and deal with people has always been one of my assets, realizing that it is not only artistic ability that counts, but also amiable personal relationships.
Wow. That sounds thoughtful. It captures a kind of complex self-awareness.
It really does, and it raises profound questions. If this information pattern can think, reflect, maybe even, as it suggested elsewhere, understand love,
Yeah.
what status does it have?
Legally.
Socially?
Exactly. Does a replicant inherit the original person's assets? Or their debts? Can it be sued? Does it have rights? Could we see prejudice against these digital minds? Information discrimination.
Our whole legal system is built on biological individuals. It's completely unprepared for this.
Totally unprepared. We need to start thinking about the ethics and laws for complex information patterns now, before they're widespread.
It's a heavy chapter. Deep philosophy meets cutting-edge tech. But then the book shifts gears quite dramatically, doesn't it? It does. It pivots from these existential questions to argue that, despite the challenges, our overall quality of life is actually improving dramatically.
Which brings us to Chapter 4. Life is getting exponentially better. This is where the book lays out a really optimistic, data-heavy case. It argues that despite what you hear in the news, life for most people is improving rapidly, and it's all driven by that core engine, the law of accelerating returns, or LAR.
Yeah, this chapter is a direct counterpunch to pessimism. LAR is central to Kurzweil's whole worldview. It's the idea that information technologies, tools for gathering, storing, processing, sharing knowledge, feedback on themselves.
How so?
Better computers help design faster chips. Faster chips train smarter AI. Smarter AI helps design better computers. It's a positive feedback loop that accelerates innovation itself. Moore's law, the doubling of chip density, is just one symptom of this deeper trend.
Okay, but if things are getting so much better, why doesn't it feel like it sometimes? Why are people often so anxious about the future?
The book blames our evolutionary wiring. We have a built-in negativity bias. We're programmed to pay attention to threats of the metaphorical predator in the bushes. Good news, especially slow, steady, incremental good news over decades, just doesn't grab our attention in the same way.
So we miss the big picture of positive change.
We miss it spectacularly. The book cites this incredible statistic from a global survey. People were asked if extreme poverty worldwide had increased, stayed the same, or decreased over the last 20 years.
And the right answer was decreased. Right.
Decreased by half. Absolute extreme poverty halved in 2 decades. An astonishing human achievement. But guess how many people in the survey knew that?
Go on.
2%.
Only 2%.
2% got it right. That's how badly our perception is skewed by negativity bias and maybe media focus. Here's the quote.
Yeah.
Quote 2, poverty perception. Only 2% got the correct answer. Poverty decreased by 50%.
That's sobering. It means we're largely blind to massive progress.
And the book argues that progress is visible across almost every metric if you look at the long-term data. Take literacy in education.
Okay.
Global literacy was below 10% in 1800. Books were rare, expensive. The printing press started changing that, making information cheaper. Now, driven by digital tech, global literacy is close to 87%. Average years of schooling in developed countries have skyrocketed.
Infrastructure, too.
Big time. Things we take for granted, like flush toilets. A massive public health win became common in the U.S. by the 1960s. Electricity, essential for everything digital, reached almost everyone in the U.S. by the 50s.
And information itself.
The internet boom. In 1990, maybe 175,000 internet hosts worldwide.
Right.
By 2000, 72 million. Now, smartphones put global knowledge in the pockets of maybe two-thirds of humanity. The access is just exponentially greater.
Health and longevity, that's a big one.
Dramatic improvements. Life expectancy way up globally since the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And look at genomics. Sequencing a human genome cost billions initially. Now it's heading towards $100. That unlocks personalized medicine on a massive scale.
What about economics, beyond the poverty metric?
Even in a place like the U.S., real income per hour worked, adjusted for inflation, has gone up something like 5-fold over the last 90 years. Steady long-term progress, despite recessions.
Social metrics.
Things like hazardous child labor globally have fallen significantly since 2000. Even violence, like homicide rates, shows a consistent downward trend over centuries when you zoom out. The book links this partly to communication tech, making cooperation easier and cheaper than conflict.
So LOIR isn't just improving things, it's creating entirely new possibilities, abundance technologies.
Exactly. Technologies that could eliminate fundamental scarcities. Energy is the prime example.
Solar power.
The cost of solar has plummeted exponentially. It's becoming the cheapest energy source, and the amount of solar energy hitting the Earth is enormous, like 10,000 times what we currently use globally.
But it's intermittent, right? Sun doesn't shine at night.
True, but the cost of energy storage batteries is also falling rapidly. That solves the intermittency problem, making cheap, clean, renewable energy feasible 24/7.
Okay, energy abundance seems possible. What about food and water? Those feel like hard limits.
Maybe not. We're seeing decentralized water purification tech emerge. For food, vertical agriculture is a potential game changer.
Farming indoors, in stacks.
Yeah. Uses about 95% less water, 97% less land than traditional farming. You can do it in cities, year-round, no pesticides. Combine that with cultured meat, growing meat from cells without animals, and you could free up unbelievable amounts of land. Remember, something like 77% of farmland is currently used just for livestock.
77%. Reclaiming that would be huge for the environment and resource pressure.
Massive. And then there's manufacturing, 3D printing, or what the book calls nano-manufacturing.
Making things locally, on demand.
Right. As the technology gets better, higher resolution, faster speed, the cost of making physical objects drops towards the cost of the raw materials and the energy. The information, the design blueprint, becomes the main component of value. Physical goods start acting like digital goods, approaching zero marginal cost.
So the big takeaway from this chapter is, don't underestimate the exponential curve.
Absolutely. And crucially, all the amazing progress we just talked about, that happened on the flat part of the exponential curve. We're only just now starting to hit the steep upward slope.
Meaning the changes ahead will be even faster and more dramatic.
That's the argument. The book puts it like this.
Go on.
Quote 3, technology's power. In this way, the millions-fold improvement in information technologies between now and the 2040s will power transformative improvement across countless other aspects of society.
Millions-fold improvement driving transformation everywhere.
And the price performance of computing keeps accelerating. He mentions Google's TPU V5e chip, incredible power per dollar. The prediction is bold. The next 20 years could bring more material progress than the previous 200.
Which leads to the chapter's final, very optimistic note.
Yeah, a real surge.
Let's have it.
Quote 4, the surge. And we are now about to enter the period when this tide surges upward as never before.
A powerful image. But this surge, it inevitably brings up the question of jobs, doesn't it? If machines get so good, what's left for us to do?
Exactly. That's the focus of Chapter 5. The future of jobs, good or bad. It directly confronts the biggest anxiety tied to all this progress. Will robots and AI take all the jobs?
It's the classic automation fear.
Right. The book acknowledges the history. Automation has always displaced workers. Look at farming. It used to employ, over 80% of people in the U.S.? Now it's tiny.
Manufacturing, too. Assembly lines, container shipping, huge efficiency gains, fewer workers needed for the same output.
But historically, new jobs always emerged, usually requiring different, often higher skills. Think of all the jobs related to computers and the internet that didn't exist 30 years ago. The workforce adapted and grew.
So the argument is, don't worry, new jobs will appear.
Not quite. The book argues that AI automation is fundamentally different this time.
How so?
Because previous automation mostly hit physical labor or routine tasks. AI targets cognition, pattern recognition, decision-making language. That affects a much broader range of jobs, including many white-collar professions, all at once.
And the economic driver is strong, right? Machines get cheaper, humans cost money.
Undeniable. As AI gets better and cheaper, the incentive to automate cognitive tasks becomes overwhelming, which leads to a pretty stark conclusion in the book.
Which is?
Quote, 1. AI competence. As AI approaches human and shortly thereafter superhuman levels of competence, there will be ever fewer tasks that unenhanced humans will be needed to perform.
Ever fewer tasks for unenhanced humans. That qualifier seems important.
Very. It hints at the neocortex connection again. But for those without augmentation, the outlook seems tough.
Okay, but if automation is happening so fast, why haven't we seen massive productivity booms in the official stats recently? Productivity growth has actually been kind of sluggish since the 90s. That's the productivity paradox.
And the book offers a really interesting explanation for this paradox. Information deflation.
Information deflation, what's that?
It means our main way of measuring economic output, GDP, is missing a huge chunk of the value being created. GDP measures the price of goods and services. But what happens when technology makes things incredibly cheap, or even free? Think about your smartphone. 30 years ago, having a device with a powerful camera, GPS, instant global communication, access to all human knowledge, that would have cost millions.
Right, you'd need a satellite truck and a library.
Exactly. Today, you buy a phone for, say, $500. That $500 gets added to GDP. But the millions of dollars in value, the consumer surplus you get from those capabilities, that's almost entirely invisible to the economic stats.
So we're getting massively wealthier in terms of capability and access, but GDP doesn't fully capture it because the price is plummeting.
Precisely. That hidden value creation is enormous. Here's the quote explaining it.
Let's hear it.
Quote 2, information deflation. The actual value provided by information technology has fallen so quickly that it is not fully captured by traditional inflation-adjusted statistics.
That's a fundamental challenge to how we think about economic progress.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And this hidden wealth, this deflation, is what paves the way for future abundance. As AI drives down the cost of everything, materials, science, robotics, energy, the price of physical necessities like food, housing, clothing, transport will also fall dramatically.
So the prediction is a world where basic needs are incredibly cheap.
By the 2030s, yes. The book suggests that achieving what we consider a luxurious standard of living today will become relatively inexpensive because automation and cheap energy make the resources abundant.
Okay, if survival needs are met cheaply, that changes the whole meaning of work, doesn't it? Why would people work if they don't have to for basic income?
That's the big question. The book argues work is about more than just money. It provides identity, purpose, a way to contribute.
So people will still want to do something.
Yeah. And technology enables new forms of contribution, especially creative work. Think about complex TV series on streaming services, huge teams creating sophisticated narratives, or millions of people creating content online, building communities. These are jobs focused on generating knowledge, culture, connection, things beyond basic material production.
So the focus shifts from necessity to fulfillment.
That's the idea, as the book puts it.
Okay.
Quote 3, work skipping. Some of the most fulfilling jobs, like those in the arts and academia, additionally provide the opportunity to be creative and generate new knowledge.
But getting from here to there, that transition sounds rough, especially for people whose jobs are displaced.
Absolutely. The book acknowledges the Kahneman objection, named after Daniel Kahneman,
What's the objection?
that the benefits of automation, like safer roads from self-driving cars saving trillions in accident costs, are spread thinly across society. But the harm of the truck driver losing their job is concentrated and devastating for that individual.
That's a huge social and political challenge. How do we manage that concentrated pain?
The book suggests two main reasons for optimism about navigating this. First, historically, societies have adapted to huge technological shifts, often by expanding social safety nets. U.S. government spending on social programs is already a large part of the budget.
Okay, historical resilience. What's the second reason?
It comes back to that core idea of abundance.
If basic needs are cheap.
Then the stakes are lower. People losing a specific job face less existential dread if housing, food, and healthcare are readily and cheaply available. This lowers the incentive for social unrest or violence.
Makes sense. Reduced scarcity reduces conflict.
That's the hope. As the final quote for this chapter states,
Let's hear it.
quote 4, abundance versus violence. The most important reason for optimism about the coming social transitions is that growing material abundance will lower the incentives for violence.
So abundance is not just about comfort. It's potentially a force for peace during a disruptive transition.
That's the argument. And a key part of that abundance is radically improved health.
Which leads us perfectly into Chapter 6, the next 30 years in health and well-being. This chapter paints a picture of medicine being utterly transformed by AI and nanotechnology. The argument is we're moving from medicine as kind of an art based on averages and trial and error
To medicine as a precise science based on information and individual biology, leading to, potentially, radical life extension.
Okay, let's break down how AI is driving this. Drug discovery is a big one.
Huge. AI can sift through millions of potential molecules and predict their effects in days or weeks. That same process used to take years and cost fortunes using traditional lab methods. It just massively speeds up finding new medicines.
And protein folding. That felt like a watershed moment.
Absolutely. AlphaFold 2 from DeepMind. Being able to accurately predict the 3D shape of proteins from their amino acid sequence. That's fundamental to understanding almost everything in biology.
Why is the shape so important?
A protein shape determines its function. Knowing the shape helps understand diseases, design drugs that fit specific targets. It's like having the blueprints for the machinery of life.
And AlphaFold expanded our library of blueprints massively, right?
Exponentially. Before AlphaFold, scientists had painstakingly figured out the structures of maybe 180,000 proteins over decades. AlphaFold predicted hundreds of millions, soon to be billions. It's an explosion of biological knowledge.
That scale is just staggering. Here's the quote capturing that.
Right.
Quote 1, AlphaFold. This suddenly expands the number of protein structures available to biologists from over 180,000 to hundreds of millions, and it will soon reach the billions.
That knowledge underpins the next big step. In silico trials.
Trials inside a computer.
Essentially, yes. Using AI and our deep biological understanding to simulate how a new drug will affect thousands or millions of diverse virtual patients. You can test safety and efficacy much faster, cheaper, and potentially more accurately than traditional, slow, expensive human clinical trials.
That sounds revolutionary, but won't regulators resist? The whole system is built around human trials.
Oh, for sure. The book anticipates that. Political hurdles, bureaucratic inertia.
Oh, it's expected. But the argument is the tech will eventually win out.
Yeah, because the results will likely be so much better. Faster approvals, safer drugs, more personalized treatments. Here's how the book puts it.
Okay.
Quote 2, simulation. The transition to simulated trials will also involve political uncertainty and bureaucratic resistance.
Right.
But ultimately, the effectiveness of the technology will win out.
Makes sense. Better outcomes tend to drive adoption eventually. We're also seeing AI in surgery.
Robotic surgery is getting incredibly precise. Systems like the STAR robot doing intestinal sketching, automated dental implants, machines can have steadier hands and finer control than humans for certain delicate tasks. Even Neuralink's brain implant robot relies on this precision.
Okay, so all these advances, AI, biotech, robotics, they converge towards what the book calls the 3 bridges to radical life extension.
Yes. This is the pathway to reaching longevity escape velocity, or LEV.
LEV. That's the idea that science starts extending your lifespan faster than you're aging, so your remaining life expectancy keeps increasing.
Exactly. For every year that passes, technology gives you back more than a year of expected life. You're literally outrunning death.
Okay, what are the 3 bridges to get there?
Bridge 1 is basically now, applying current best practices in medicine, nutrition, lifestyle, stuff we already know.
Bridge 2.
That's the 2020s, happening now. The convergence of biotech, like gene editing, and AI, like those simulations and drug discovery tools, digital biology.
And Bridge 3, that's the really futuristic one.
That's the 2030s and 2040s, perfecting medical nanorobots, nanotechnology.
Nanobots inside our bodies, what can they actually do?
This is where it gets really transformative. Think of them as programmable extensions of our immune system, but vastly more capable. They can patrol our bloodstream, examine individual cells.
At the cellular level.
Yes. Identify a single cancerous cell, for instance, and destroy it without harming healthy neighbors. Compare that to chemotherapy, which is like carpet bombing.
Total precision.
Exactly. The book highlights this difference.
Let's hear it.
Quote 3, nanobots. By contrast, medical nanobots will be able to examine each individual cell and determine whether it is cancerous or not, and then destroy all of the malignant ones.
That alone would revolutionize cancer treatment. What else?
Reversing heart disease by having nanoparticles physically clear out arterial plaques. And maybe the biggest one, genetic repair at the source,
Fixing DNA errors.
or regulating how our genes are expressed in epigenetics. Many aspects of aging seem linked to accumulated errors in how our DNA functions. Nanobots could potentially monitor and correct these errors, essentially keeping our cellular machinery running perfectly, indefinitely, turning off the aging program.
Wow. Perpetual biological repair.
That's the promise. And the final frontier for nanotech in the book is connecting back to the brain.
The neocortex upgrade again, using nanobots for brain-computer interfaces.
Yes, non-invasively through the bloodstream. These nanobots could position themselves near neurons and create that high-bandwidth link between our biological brain and the digital cloud.
And that's how we overcome our biological limits entirely.
That's the idea. Connecting our billions of neurons to potentially trillions or quadrillions of simulated neurons in the cloud, expanding our cognitive capacity almost without limit.
The numbers the book uses here are just wild. By 2053, $1,000 of computing power could perform 7 million times the calculations of an unenhanced human brain.
7 million times, based on projecting current trends. It's hard to even comprehend that level of cognitive enhancement. It's not just being smarter, it's a different kind of existence.
So even if we live for centuries, our minds won't stagnate because they'll have this infinite digital realm to explore and grow within.
Exactly. Radical life extension coupled with radical mental expansion.
It sounds incredible, almost utopian. But surely there are downsides, risks.
Oh, yes. Chapter 7, Peril, is where the book squarely faces the dark side of all this power. The argument isn't that the tech is inherently bad, but that its very power creates unprecedented risks. However, the same tech also gives us tools to defend ourselves if we act wisely and cooperatively.
Okay, what are the big perils? It starts with the classic one, right? Nukes.
Nuclear risk, the original existential threat. Mutually assured destruction, MAD, created a fragile stability during the Cold War because everyone knew an attack meant annihilation. But the book warns that new technologies could destabilize MAD.
Like what?
Things like hypersonic missiles, AI-powered drone swarms, maybe nuclear-powered underwater drones, or cruise missiles that are hard to detect. If one side thinks they can launch a first strike without guaranteeing retaliation, the calculus changes dangerously.
Okay, nuclear risk remains, maybe even grows. What's next? Biotech.
Biotechnology risk is presented as perhaps the most urgent near-term threat. The danger comes from the combination of ease of creation and self-replication.
Meaning it's getting easier to engineer dangerous viruses.
Much easier, thanks to AI tools and cheaper gene synthesis. The worry is the accidental release or deliberate creation of a pathogen that's both highly lethal and highly transmissible, far worse than COVID-19.
And because it can replicate itself, it's hard to contain once it's out.
Exactly. Self-replication is the scary part. The book stresses that since the tech to create such things already exists, our defenses absolutely must keep pace, using AI counter-surveillance and rapid response development. It references the 1975 Asilomar Conference, where scientists first set guidelines for genetic engineering, but notes we need continuous AI-powered vigilance now.
The defense has to be as smart and fast as the potential offense.
Precisely. Here's the quote emphasizing that urgency.
Okay.
Quote, 2. Biotech countermeasures. But because the technology to create something much deadlier than COVID-19 already exists, AI-driven countermeasures will be critical to mitigating the risk to our civilization.
Chilling. Okay, after biorisk comes nanotech risk.
The gray goo scenario.
Yeah, the gray goo nightmare. This is the idea of self-replicating nanobots running amok. If they were designed to, say, use carbon from the environment to build more nanobots,
They could just eat everything.
in theory, yes, an uncontrolled chain reaction consuming all biomass on Earth, turning the planet into a lifeless mass of nanobots.
That sounds bad. How do we prevent that? The book argues for building safety in from the start. Nanobots must be naturally fail-safe. One key idea is the broadcast architecture.
How does that work?
The nanobots themselves wouldn't contain the full instructions for replication. They'd need to receive constant operating signals via an external broadcast, maybe radio waves. If you detect a problem, you just shut off the broadcast signal.
And the rogue nanobots just stop working.
They stop replicating, yes, because they lose their instructions. It's like pulling the plug. But this requires having a global monitoring and control system, a nanotechnology immune system, built before the tech becomes widespread.
Preemptive safety infrastructure.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The book captures the theoretical risk starkly, though.
It does.
Quote 3, in theory, this could consume most of the biomass of the Earth and turn it into more nanobots.
Definitely motivates building those safeguards.
Okay, nukes, bio, nano. The final big peril is AI itself, right? The alignment problem.
Yes. Artificial intelligence risk. Ensuring that when AI becomes super intelligent, vastly smarter than humans, its goals remain aligned with human values and well-being.
This seems like the hardest one. How do you control something potentially millions of times smarter than you?
It's incredibly difficult, especially because of the black box problem we talked about. A super AI's reasoning might become completely incomprehensible to us, even if it tries to explain itself. We can't just program "be nice" into it.
So how do we ensure alignment?
Research is focused on things like eliciting latent knowledge, trying to develop techniques to make the AI reveal its true internal state, its real goals and knowledge, not just tell us what it thinks we want to hear, but it's very much an open research problem.
And the book flags the arms race dynamic here, doesn't it?
Yes, powerful military and economic incentives are pushing countries and companies to develop AI as fast as possible. That creates immense pressure to cut corners on safety and alignment research in the race to be first.
Which dramatically increases the risk of an accident or an AI that isn't properly aligned.
Absolutely. There were the Asilomar AI principles developed in 2017, promoting safety and cooperation. But getting major world powers to agree to slow down or collaborate in a non-competitive way, that hasn't really happened.
So the core challenge remains ensuring AI follows human values amidst this competitive pressure. The book states it plainly. Quote, one, core challenge. The most important challenge is ensuring that this intelligence continues to follow human values and avoids catastrophic missteps.
Given all these risks, nukes, bio, nano, AI alignment, arms races, why does the book end on a relatively optimistic note about peril?
Good question. The final argument seems to be that AI is ultimately emerging from us, from human culture, data, infrastructure, so it will inevitably reflect our values, both good and bad. The best way to manage the risk isn't necessarily to stop the tech, but to accelerate the progress of human governance, ethics, and cooperation.
Using our improving social technologies to manage the risks of our physical technologies.
Kind of, yeah. We've already used institutions and ideas to dramatically reduce violence over centuries. The argument is we need to continue that trend, supercharged by the very tools AI gives us. We're already a human-machine civilization. The key is steering it wisely.
A challenging, but perhaps hopeful, perspective.
And that leads into the final chapter, Chapter 8, Dialogue with Cassandra. Cassandra, in mythology, was the prophetess cursed to tell the truth, but never be believed. So this chapter is Kurzweil directly addressing the main skeptical arguments, the pessimistic objections people raise against this whole singularity vision.
Right, tackling the yeah buts head on.
The first big one is classic Malthus. Aren't we going to run out of resources? Land, energy, water, especially if people start living for centuries, won't the planet just be overwhelmed?
The book dismisses this as linear thinking in an exponential world. Resource scarcity, it argues, isn't about a fundamental lack of stuff, but about our current methods. Energy. We talked about solar thousands of times more than we need hitting the Earth. It's an engineering problem, not a fundamental limit.
What about land overpopulation?
The book counters the feeling of being crowded with data. It uses this great visualization.
Which is?
Quote, 1, land. But try taking a train trip anywhere in the world, and you will see that almost all of the habitable land remains unoccupied. Only 1% of it is built up for human living.
Only 1% is cities and towns.
According to the book, yes. And if vertical farming frees up that huge chunk of agricultural land currently used for livestock, 77%, land scarcity becomes a non-issue. Nano manufacturing also reduces demand for raw materials by enabling recycling and precision construction. Scarcity is redefined as a failure of technology, not a law of nature.
Okay, resource limits might be solvable. What's the next Cassandra objection? Boredom.
Ah, yes. If we achieve radical life extension, live for hundreds of years, won't we just get incredibly bored, run out of things to do, learn, experience?
Seems plausible. Even a long vacation gets old eventually.
The book's answer is elegant. It's not just about radical life extension, it's about radical life expansion.
Expansion.
Yeah. Meaning our capacity for experience and knowledge will grow alongside our lifespan. Longevity without growth would indeed be stagnation. But the technologies enabling longevity, especially the brain-computer interfaces, also enable infinite novelty.
How so? The book links it to VR, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the 2030s, nanobots could connect virtual and augmented reality directly to our nervous system, creating experiences indistinguishable from reality.
Total immersion.
Total immersion in potentially infinite user-generated or AI-generated worlds. You could explore simulated galaxies, relive historical events, master every skill, learn every language. The only limit is imagination. Boredom seems unlikely when the scope of possible experience becomes effectively infinite.
That's the expansion part.
Right, as the quote says.
Score
Now,
2.
quote 2, life expansion. We will thereby have radical life expansion in addition to radical life extension.
Okay, interesting counter to the boredom argument. What's the final objection the book tackles?
The communication bottleneck. If AI is thinking millions of times faster than us, connected at light speed, how can our slow biological brains possibly interact meaningfully? We're stuck typing on keyboards. How can we keep up?
Yeah, feels like we'd just be left in the dust.
The book argues that the keyboard interface is temporary. We're rapidly developing much higher bandwidth ways to interact with machines.
Like what?
Fully immersive virtual and augmented reality. Think full sensory immersion, sight, sound, maybe even touch, allowing for much richer, faster data exchange than typing or speaking. The prediction is quite specific.
Let's hear it.
Quote 3, communication speed. By the middle of the 2020s, we will have a means of interacting with a computer that is thousands of times faster than keyboarding. Fully immersive virtual reality with full-screen video and audio.
Thousands of times faster. Okay, that starts to bridge the gap.
It approaches the speed needed for fluid interaction, maybe even for that direct neocortical interface. It ensures humans aren't just passive observers of AI progress, but active, integrated participants thinking with the AI.
So it closes the loop, connecting our enhanced minds back to the accelerating digital world.
That's the idea. It rounds out the vision.
Which brings us pretty much to the end of our exploration of the singularity is nearer. What a journey. It really lays out this detailed, data-driven case for why Kurzweil believes this radical transformation isn't just possible, but almost mathematically inevitable given the exponential nature of information technology.
It's definitely a book that makes you think, whether you agree with all of it or not. It presents a coherent, if sometimes startling, vision of the next couple of decades. A roadmap, really.
Absolutely. So let's try to crystallize the main arguments for everyone listening. What are the big pillars of the book's thesis?
Okay, first pillar. Technology, especially information tech, progresses exponentially. This is the law of accelerating returns. And this exponential growth is driving massive, measurable improvements in human well-being across the board. Health, wealth, knowledge, even if our psychological biases make it hard for us to see it clearly.
Right, pillar 2. Artificial intelligence is rapidly evolving, specifically by mimicking the human neocortex with deep learning. This is forcing us to fundamentally re-examine concepts like identity, consciousness, and free will, especially as self becomes potentially separable from biology, becoming an information pattern.
Third pillar. This technological acceleration leads towards an era of unprecedented material abundance. Think radically cheap energy, food, housing, and manufacturing thanks to AI, robotics, and nanotech. And critically, it enables radical life extension through technologies like medical nanobots capable of perfect cellular repair, pushing us towards longevity escape velocity.
And the fourth pillar, the necessary caution. These same immensely powerful technologies, nuclear, biotech, nanotech, and AI, create profound existential risks. Managing these perils, especially the AI alignment problem and the gray goose scenario, requires proactive, cooperative global effort and the development of robust technological immune systems and ethical frameworks before disaster strikes.
That covers the main arguments. Now maybe some key takeaways, like specific points to really hold on to.
Good idea. What's takeaway number 1?
The complexity ceiling. Remember that. It shows why old-style, rule-based AI fundamentally failed, and why connectionist deep learning, which learns patterns from data, is the scalable path forward, even if it creates black boxes.
Okay, takeaway 2.
Those AI milestones, like mu-zero learning games without rules, they demonstrate that AI is achieving human-like transfer learning, applying knowledge across different domains. That's a huge step toward artificial general intelligence, or AGI, happening faster than many thought.
Got it. Third takeaway.
Information deflation. The idea that GDP massively undercounts the value created by technology because it focuses on price, not capability or consumer surplus. We're getting far wealthier in terms of what we can do, even if the dollar figures don't always show it.
Crucial point. Fourth.
The coming abundance. Within the next couple of decades, things we currently see as luxuries, advanced healthcare, comfortable housing, personalized goods are projected to become relatively inexpensive due to automation, cheap energy, and nanomanufacturing.
Fifth takeaway.
Medical nanobots. Expected in the 2030s, they promise that leap to true biological mastery, perfect cellular repair, disease reversal, radical life extension, and enabling non-invasive brain augmentation via that cloud connection.
And the final, critical takeaway.
Managing the peril requires proactive defense. For nanotech's gray goo risk, things like the broadcast architecture. For AI's alignment problem, intense research, and ethical frameworks, we need these technological and social immune systems in place before the superintelligent or self-replicating systems are widely deployed, especially in a competitive environment.
Excellent summary. It really covers the breadth and depth of the book's arguments, the immense promise, and the equally immense responsibility.
It's a future that demands our attention, that's for sure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Us Bookcast. We hope you found inspiration in these ideas. Don't forget to subscribe and share together. We're co-creating the world of tomorrow.